A lot of times, there are things I have trouble figuring out. And one of the things that has often gone through my mind is I've asked myself, is it destiny or is it karma? Never been able to figure out which, but for today, I'll call it destiny. Years ago, I should have figured this out because, you know, I have observed over time that there are things that just appear to be destined to be. And you should be able to see them when they occur. But, you know, I'm not necessarily very bright, so I didn't always see them. But I would tell you that time and over time, this has allowed me to kind of see this. And I've been around for a while, so really I've spent a lot of debate time. And so I should have known that at the DCI tournament in 1987, when I pointed my graphite driver at Riffer and said, "We've got you this time," and laughed, that would come back around. And it has. And for all of you that know Chris, and for all of you that don't know him, I would tell you that over the course of the last 15 years, the success that he's had is probably unparalleled in the group of all of us that are here. Undoubtedly, one of the most successful coaches in terms of wins and trophies in the state of Kansas for a long time. The only other person that I know that has been nearly as prolific in terms of success was the King. And those of us who have been around in the past know about that success. But when I told Chris I got him this time, I didn't realize that was going to start to where he was marching towards that success. I really don't think I probably had anything to do with it, but you know, it probably is karma. Okay? Now, the nice part about that, and what you need to know about Chris, is when it came around, no vengeance. Instead, he coaches and he deals with people. He has reverence. He respects others. And he's humble. And you know what? Those are just outstanding attributes. And I have lots of friends. I can't say that about all of them. Okay? But I can say that about Chris. I really think that Chris is one of the best representatives we have, not only in the state of Kansas, but of the people I know around the nation, of the best or the ideals that are most important for us to be successful as coaches. And I'm not saying that just to make Chris sound nice. I'm really sincere about it. He really does represent the best of all of us. And I also happen to believe, and I've studied this over time too, I believe Chris was destined to be a debate coach. And when I look at the people that I share commonalities with, I see commonalities in terms of their schooling, in terms of the perfect storm that occurs in their life where the stars are aligned and the weather is right and the climate is right and the stars are right and the family is perfect and they're in the location and the line presents itself to where it occurs. And he is an example of, I think, something that happened at that sport. I think Chris was destined to be a debate coach. I'm pretty sure, like most of us, he kind of stumbled into it. But once he found it, you know, I've always told this to people looking at their teaching career. I've said, you know what? You don't pick a career. Your career finds you. And Chris found debate, and debate found him. And you know, we're all better for it. And I tell you this because he's an example of a number of coaches today. One of the things that come from Shawnee Mission West, it tends to be a hotbed of coaches. He debated at Shawnee Mission West. After he debated at Shawnee Mission West, he went on to UMKC and became a debater. I know that we picked on him when he was in debate in high school, but he always had the respect after people talked to him, of whoever he was competing with, The same occurred when he was in college, because sometimes even his opposition coaches helped him along the way. I know that Glenn Strickland likes to take credit for Chris's record-breaking win streak. I'm pretty sure that Glenn didn't have a lot to do with it, but Glenn likes to take credit for it. He then became the Shawnee Mission West coach, and when he became the Shawnee Mission West coach, he set up another thing that tends to ride with him. He likes to follow legends, or at least coaches who are legends in their own mind, or somebody else's. So at Shawnee Mission West, he followed Malin Coop. And he also took on a forensics program from Sally Shipley. And that's a real legend. And I always laughed when he did that. I went, this will be funny. Riffer taking over the forensics program at Shawnee Mission West and coaching drama events. And you know what? He was good at it. And I don't think he's necessarily very dramatic. In fact, I don't think he can probably act. But that's all right, work for him anyway. Then his next was to become the Blue Valley coach. And when he became the Blue Valley coach, he joined an exclusive club, the Followers of Bill Davis. The original member of that club was Cindy Brigette. And Cindy can tell you stories about Bill. Chris followed Bill in a more difficult situation because Bill was still in the building. And I think Bill picked the schedule so that he was on plan when Riffer had debate. And so Davis would always grace the debate room with his presence when Chris taught class. And when Chris would say, "Are there any questions?" Davis would go. If we had to do that, all of us would just, oh. In addition to that, the other thing that Riffer did that I think is really neat is Riffer likes to, he doesn't impose himself immediately on anything, so he took on traditions. One of the traditions he told me about that he never understood at Blue Valley High, when Davis was there, is an example of how adaptable he is. They had a copier in the room, and with the copier in the room, they do stuff, and Chris said, one day we ran out of paper, so I asked Davis, how do we get paper? Davis said, I'll take care of it. So he got a hat, and he walked around the room, he said, I need money for paper. And he made all the kids throw in paper. And then when he's done, he gave the hat to a kid, he said, go buy paper. And Riffer went, what? But you know what? He accepted it, didn't try to change it immediately, waited till Davis was out of the room. And then from that point on, there was a third member of the followers of Davis, and it became Steve Wood. And Steve Wood doesn't have quite as hard as Riffer had it because Davis is in his class, but still, to give you an idea of what Davis is like, Davis still comes into Wood's classroom every Monday morning before school to tell him what an awful coach he is. I don't know that he ever said that to Chris, but I'm sure that he did give Chris those looks someday like, you just have no idea. But you know what? He really did. In any case, here's what I tell you about Chris is. Over the last 10 years, I've been at Blue Valley West. Chris was the coach at Blue Valley when I came there. The rest of the coaching staff has turned over. But Chris is like the senior Blue Valley coach. And to give you an idea of what that's like, that means he gets to work with me, and Wood, and Zuckerman, and Lewis. And I don't know that any of you know us all that well. That's not an easy group to deal with. But you know, Chris handles it really well. I'm proud to call Chris a friend. We do some social things. We even play poker together. I like to take his money, and we both like to take Mr. Wood's money. But anyway, he is our mentor as a Blue Valley coach. And I've learned as much from Chris as I have from anybody else I've worked with. And he is certainly many years younger than I am. Now, he did tell me he has gray hair. And you just need to remember it's probably premature. Okay? But in any case, he's our leader. I consider him a leader in the coaching field. He's been a president of the KSCA. He's been a leader in terms of curricular things. And he's a good guy. And I tell you, the reason that I respect him as a coach is he's got three things that are really, really great qualities. One, he believes in the power of the mind. He believes, and I can tell that from talking to him, that if you just give people the freedom to think for themselves, and you give them a way that they can think for themselves, and you facilitate it, they'll be successful. And you know what? That's pretty much how his teams operate. Second, Chris really believes in doing things right. And if he doesn't do things, what he considers to be right, it troubles him. He tries to correct it. And so he has a real sense of the right way to debate, the right way to deal with people, the right way to deal with your peers, and the right way to have a family. Chris has a great family. They're really enjoyable. And I would tell you that even his family has a debate background because his wife is a former Topeka High debater. And not many of us can claim that we've been married before. And then the other thing with Chris is Chris is really, really consistent. Chris is even-keeled in terms of his temperament, and he's consistent in the way that he does things. And as I told you before, the other thing that's really great about Chris, he's really not that old. I respect him. And there is no reason for any of us to ever fear competing against Chris. He might beat you, but when he beats you, he won't beat up on you. I think that's maybe one of the coolest characteristics you could possibly have. Thank you, Chris.